eyewitness account said that the guy let her run away and then he went back to chase her. So it was like he was wanting to feel the high of the chase.
Like I said, we do have a main topic on the show. This next one, it's going to be a little, it's fun in a way if you like talking about true crime and unsolved murders. But there is a very serious tone to it. But this is, like I said, we like to talk about main topics on this show. I'm going to start calling them actually conversations with Cap, and they're going to be kind of fun. So this is the Texarkana Phantom Killer. So in 1946, this man killed 5 people. So this has been turned into quite a few things, books, movies. It's still a mystery. So we're going to go kind of deep dive into it. If you haven't noticed, for you all watching, I have been doing little short mystery clips called Caps Mysteries, where I go over short stories about this one. And this one was one of them. And it perked my interest so much that I wanted to talk more about it with you. Now, before we get started, have you heard about this before, since you live on that side of the
world? I had not actually. That's kind of why I picked it, was because one, it was kind of close by, and I like true crime mysteries, unsolved mysteries, stuff like that. I loved Murder, She Wrote, a lot of old TV series like that and stuff. So very interesting. And it's
did you know there's a show on Hallmark called Murder She Baked?
I saw commercials for it. I thought it was a spoof. I didn't think it was real.
No, it's real.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Yeah, so that's cool. So I'm glad you picked this one. There was some other one. So we'll get right into it. So yeah, the Texarkana Moonlight Murders, a term coined by the press, was a series of 4 unsolved serial murders related violent crimes committed in the Texarkana region. Now that's on the border of Texas and Arkansas. There's an actual town. Have you been there?
I have been through Texarkana, but I've never stopped in Texarkana.
Okay. Haven't been there yet. We went a different route when we went to Arkansas. So this all happened in 1946. The unidentified predator known as the Phantom of Texarkana, the Phantom Killer, the Phantom Slayer, is all hypothetical subject created with attacking 8 people, 5 of them fatality in a 10-week period. So that's a short period of time that he was doing these crimes to these people. The attacks occurred at night on weekends between February 22nd and May 3rd, targeting couples. The first 3 attacks occurred at lovers' lanes and quiet stretches of road in Texas. The 4th was at an isolated farmhouse in Arkansas. I'm sure you have a lot of those. Yeah, and that's the house there. That's one of the houses and one of the cars from actual crime photos. The murders were reported nationally and internationally by several publications and caused state of panic in Texarkana throughout the summer. So that would be pretty terrifying, right? 1946. You don't have a cell phone. You don't really. Texarkana was probably a smaller town at the time.
It was. It was actually pretty well known for crime at this point in time, though. It was kind of one of those still Wild West feel, but not quite all the way Wild West. It was starting to become modernized.
Yeah, so it was probably just a kind of a sleepy, I guess not really a quiet town, but it would be kind of creepy at night, right? If you're out there by yourself. And so this happening in this town, I'm sure it took a lot of people by surprise, maybe. And but yeah, it did happen in Lovers Lane, just kind of like Zodiac a lot later. And then the Summer of Sam. So he was doing stuff like that in New York. So it's a similar thing, just earlier in American history. So I don't, and a lot of folklore and a lot of movies have kind of adapted from this. Like, you ever heard of, like, you remember you're sitting in the car and then you hear like the scratch at the door.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably from that. So the first attack was February 22nd, 1946, with Jimmy Hollis. He was 25, and Mary Jane Larry, she was 19. Were approached by a man while parked at Lover's Lane. They're ordered out of the car, and Jimmy was asked to take his pants off. Jimmy was then pistol whipped so hard that his skull was fractured. Mary was told to run. When the attacker caught up with Mary, he sexually assaulted her. Both Jimmy and Mary survived. So that's crazy. So that was his
Yeah.
first attack.
I remember one of the articles that I had read about this is she thought that he shot her boyfriend because the crack was so loud over his head, which I don't understand how he lived. Like, if my skull, especially in the late 40s, granted, yes, hospitals were a thing, medicine was a thing, but I don't think they were redoing people's skulls at that point in time.
Maybe it just depends where he got hit. But yeah, these two, over the next two group of people that we go over, yeah, these two were considered lucky, I would say, even with their horrible injuries. But there was an article that came out right after this that there was a sex maniac out, but they didn't know he was going to spur into these things. Nowadays, when they look for stuff like that, like, okay, this is kind of suspicious, we'll keep an eye out. Maybe there might be a second thing, right? Event. So they try to catch them early. But at this time, they didn't have a lot to probably go off of to even consider that.
Their description of the guy, like the police said it wasn't quite adding up, like their descriptions of the guy, and so that's kind of why they weren't really looking hard for him after the first initial attack, was because they didn't think that the eyewitness account was very reliable.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay. So the second attack, it was his first double murder. This was in March 24, 1946. Richard L. Griffin, 29, and Polly N. Moore, 17, were gunned down while at Lover's Lane again. It is believed that they were killed outside the car and then placed inside by the Phantom. So they don't really know exactly what happened, but yeah, they did get. He just shot them. He placed them back in the car, which was even weirder. Another couple at night, and this was I would say about maybe 10 days apart. So pretty wild, right? Give or take. So
and if I remember correctly, this one was the one where the guy was placed weird when he was found, or is that the next one?
No, I think that's the next one. Yeah, I think it's
okay.
the farm. So, but no, the fact that, again, you're right. Well, they weren't sure to like sound the alarm. Don't go to Lover's Lane. He most likely knew that he would have another chance, and he didn't get to finish what he wanted to earlier. And that happens a lot with serial killers, right? They try their first time and then they kind of mess it up a little bit, and then the second one they actually kind of succeed in some cases. So I would say this was that, and this is when they actually started to call him the Phantom Killer, because it was the second one. It was at night. No one knew who he was. The second double murder was on April 13th, 1946. Betty Jo Booker, 15, and Paul Martin, 17. Very young too. He's going after the young couples. Were attacked somewhere after leaving Booker's band performance. Martin was found on the side of the road, shot 4 times. Booker was found 2 miles away. She had been shot twice. So it's almost like she was running away, and he chased her. This is the one I think where he found him on the road. So now he's up to 4. So yeah.
And the other thing, like one of the similarities, the reason why it kind of like some people tied this in with the first one is because of the fact that it looked like the killer let the woman run away. Because on the first one of the woman's eyewitness account said that the guy let her run away and then he went back to chase her. So it was like he was wanting to feel the high of the chase, and so that's why it's very
without the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he wanted to scare the woman by getting the guy first, and then chase the girl.
Mm-hmm.
And he successfully did that here, but he just left the bodies where they were here. He did not put them back. Um, so yeah, that I would assume by this time the town's probably freaking out, right? Going, I don't want to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, and then there was a fifth one. May 3rd, 1946, Virgil Starks, 37, was attacked while sitting inside the living room of his farmhouse. That's like the worst place to get attacked, right? You feel comfort in your home. You don't feel like you're going to get attacked by anybody. And this happens. He was shot twice from close window 3 feet away. His wife, Kate E., was shot twice from the same window, but managed to run to a neighbor's house. The neighbor drove to her to the hospital, and she survived.
Some
So
of
she
these
really,
people surviving some of this crap, man. Like, bruh, they were built different back then.
yeah. It's interesting because, like you said, remember he was going after Lover's Lane, so maybe they shut all those down. They said you're not doing this anymore. Maybe the police were like, you can't go out to Lover's Lane. We're gonna just stop it. So Nabby had to find a different way to go, right? So then he started creeping through the night, maybe.
I think also there were some FBI agents or some of the local police that still, some of them don't think that this is actually the same murderer. Like, some of them are still debating on, like, this isn't very much the same MO. Like, he went to somebody's house to shoot them. But with one of the suspects, if it was that suspect, it would make a little bit more sense, like that he would go after this older couple.
Yeah, maybe. This was an older couple. 30s older compared to the other ones. They were older.
Yeah, teenage versus mid to late 30s.
Yeah. So the two survivors of attacks by the Texarkana Phantom described him as 6 feet tall and wearing a white pillowcase. So this is before there was anything like Jason, Freddy Krueger around Halloween. So this would be pretty terrifying because you wouldn't, you're not visually seeing that before in a movie, I would think. With eye holes cut out, they do not agree on whether he was a dark-skinned white man or a black man. They don't know
Yeah,
that.
the two reports, one was a tall dark-skinned white man or a light-skinned brown man.
That's pretty broad. The name Phantom Killer was literally invented by the media. The Texarkana Gazette stated using the name after the double murder of Betty Jo Booker and Paul Martin. So this is about around the time when things got a little serious. But yeah, this is from a film. I will talk about that in a second. Where he is wearing the outfit described, and that would be pretty. I don't think I would want to see that at all.
Especially at night.
No.
In a dark alleyway. No, thank you.
Yeah. After the murder started, the community of Texarkana went into hysteria, which we have said. The towns instituted a curfew, so that's probably why Lover's Lane, you couldn't go there anymore. Many citizens who used to not lock their doors were buying supplies to secure their doors and windows. Think about that. 1946, they didn't have locks on doors. I mean, I have like 2 locks. I lock every door.
I have
at
3.
night. People back then just didn't do that. Local stores sold out of guns and ammo. So that's pretty terrible.
They also sold, I don't know why it doesn't mention this. It's probably because it's a funny little tidbit. They also sold out of curtains because they were using curtains to hide the window inside.
Maybe people just didn't do that before. The police were inundated with calls about minor clues or crimes. The case they also got like fake calls.
So many people were like, I know who done it, and it's like, well, they had a solid alibi. Like, there's no way this person could have done this.
Right. This case was brought to the FBI and the Texas Rangers, and more. This Texas Ranger here, Captain Manuel Gonzalez, I believe I said it, of the Texas Rangers, became the face of the investigation. Now, it's not mentioned here, but he was a pretty tough Texas Ranger, with which most are. Some of them have brought down major crime people back in the 40s. So he was quite the, hunter of the hunted. So he went after quite a few people. So he was pretty stern. You can see he looks pretty old Western, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he was involved. He was looking for them, or for him. Now there, like you said, there were some suspects. According to the FBI files, which they released pretty recently.
Yeah,
Um,
2020.
mhm, throughout the various investigations, over 300 suspects were arrested. The police also had several false confessions to contend with. But this guy here, Yul Sweeney, is considered the prime suspect for the Moonlight Murders. He was a known criminal, and his wife confessed that he was the killer.
her whole story, like she was a few marbles short of a lot of things. That was one of the official reports, is the elevator doesn't go all the way up to her brain.
Yeah, she, yeah, she, um, yeah, he was the killer. She said he was the killer, though she refused to testify against him in court. Sweeney was never officially charged and died in 1994 without confessing. When Sweeney's wife was initially told that the police were questioning her husband for murder, she responded, How did they find out?" That's nice, right? She was able to lead the police to the crime scenes and give information they believe only someone involved in the crimes would know.
Yeah, there was like a specific like notebook planner that she's like, yeah, he threw some papers over there, and the Texas Ranger was the only one who knew about that notebook that was in a bush. So because they don't release evidence like they do nowadays, so
No,
it would have been just on a need to know basis.
right. Officially, you'll always denied the allegations. Mrs. Sweeney recanted her confession, and some police officers remain unconvinced that a low life like Lowell could commit more restrained crimes than petty theft and counterfeiting. He was in prison, so at least he went to prison from 1947 1973 for auto theft. So if he did do it, yeah, I guess he went to prison for a long time.
Like the whole thing about that, the whole reason he was released was because on this charge he didn't have representation.
Okay.
They let him go based on kind of a fluke in the system. One of the other reports that I had read is when he was apprehended, like he's like, oh, I don't want to get the electric chair. And they're like, we're here for your auto theft. He's like, no, you're not. You're here for something else. So like he was like giving them like very suspicious information, brah. Like this is why I plead the fifth was invented and it is a thing, because you can incriminate yourself. And
I swear I did it.
yeah, and like the other thing about his wife's confession was when like she kept changing her story. The first time it was, well, he just wanted to go out for a leak, came back wet, weird things, and then another time he's like, well, he said that we're gonna go rob this couple, but then she wouldn't rob the couple, and so he shot the couple. It's her stories just kind of became more involved, whereas before she was like, I don't know what's going on, sir.
yeah I mean, it's just it's interesting to think that they just didn't have enough, or didn't have what we have now today to really pin it on him. I think he probably would have gotten in trouble for it. There probably would have some DNA around or something, but
I think it was him, to be honest.
Yeah, it probably was. He fits the description. He's tall, he's lanky, he's white.
With a dark complexion.
With a dark complexion. But yeah, yeah, maybe it was him. We just never know. We'll never know, because it's too far in the past now, but I do feel bad for the families who lost their people. Now they did make a movie about this in 1976, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which a fitting title, right? And here's the poster here. It's based off a true story starring Ben Johnson. Pretty terrifying movie poster. I've been trying to find this. I want to try. They did a remake in 2014, but I want to try to find this and see if I can watch it. It might be on like Tubi or something. But yeah, this So I guess in Texarkana, I don't know if this is some type of celebration or honor. They play this film in the movies in the park every Halloween.
Hmm. I don't understand why Halloween and not during like the springtime when these murders actually took place.
To tell those young folks not to,
Don't be going to those lover lanes late at night. Go to some place that's very, very well lit and well populated. That's where you need to go do your business.
Yeah. Well, again, people, if you can find the movie, go and maybe check it out. You'll get. It's probably embellished. There's probably some things in there that isn't true, but it is based on this story, the town that dreaded sundown. So I do recommend you go out and check it out. Well, I appreciate that you had a lot of research that you brought to the table.
I like to do research. I thought you were going to bring up the other guy who he kind of did like a deathbed confession. It was like a college student who was actually at the University of Arkansas, and he's like, I'm committed self-deletion, and then in my notebook, I say I committed these murders, but in other parts of his notebook, it kind of contradicts what he's saying. So it's one of those like, he kind of fits the description. He was like a 6'3" young kid, and he was connected to most everyone of the victims in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Like he went to the same school, was in the same band as one of the young couples who was in band and stuff. So
yeah, okay, yeah, I do recall hearing about that guy. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but it seems like Yule was the one that most people thought it was. But again, who knows? We will never. I don't think we'll ever find out really who it was. But it is a fascinating story about a fascinating town named after two states. I always suspect the band kids. We're gonna end it on
it's
that.
always the band kids. Always the band kids.